welcome or welcome back to Silence on the Sidelines. This is Elizabeth King, and I am a long-term soccer player. I am a committed athlete to play soccer next year, and I am a current high school senior, and I've had my experiences with ignoring my injuries for various reasons, but I've recognized that there tends to be an issue in youth sports culture where children don't feel like they are able to speak up and actually seek to receive therapy and actually recover from their injuries. Today, we're going to actually be talking about mental health struggles and athletics because it's always been such a taboo topic, and that's exactly why I want to talk about it, right? I do want to start off by saying, if you are able to, and you feel like you're struggling with mental health struggles, please seek out help. I cannot express how important this really is. We all need someone that we feel like we can just talk to, and I just can't state how important that is. Your mental struggles are just important as your physical struggles, and you should treat them with just as much care. Unless you're ignoring your injuries, then please treat it with more care than that. Just kidding. But I do just think it's really important to start off by saying that it is so important to seek out help, and I hope that by talking about mental health, we're able to start to break down some of the stigma. Awesome. So, like I said, we're going to be digging into just mental health struggles and why so many athletes are ignoring their mental health struggles until it's largely too late. I want to start off with just kind of a question. Athletes are in some of the most stressful circumstances. We're constantly pushing ourselves past physical limits, injury, exhaustion, pain, everything, right? And when we speak out about being stressed, having, struggles mentally, I feel like so many people just think it's too far, And we're often told to shake it off when it comes to mental health struggles, which is just crazy. Everyone has some type of struggle, and I've just never understood why this is such a taboo topic, because it's so human. It's so natural. I feel like our emotions are partially what make us so unique, and the fact that we are not able to talk about that is just ridiculous. So the first part I'm going to talk about is just kind of the pressure to perform. From a young age, athletes often are conditioned to equate strength with silence. I know throughout my years as a young athlete, I was always told to just listen, don't ask questions, kind of toughen up, get your head straight, and don't be a distraction. And the meta message of that is just vulnerability is weak, and weakness will get you benched or replaced. So as athletes, I feel like we become really good at hiding our struggles, whether that be anxiety, depression, burnout. It's all just pushed aside in the name of performance. One of the athletes actually told me that, quote, I didn't feel like I could tell anyone I was struggling because I didn't want to let my team down. We base so much of our mental health in performance, and our sport becomes so much of our identity that we begin to think we're just our sport. We solely value our performance instead of who we are as people, which is so incredibly complex and difficult to grapple with. The next part I want to talk about is just kind of the stigma that has been created around mental health. So, in a sports setting, it's definitely not the best place for us right now to be saying that, like, we're not okay. And while there has been growing awareness, there's still so much stigma, especially in male sports, surrounding the talk of mental health. Actually, a 2021 study from the British Journal of Sports Medicine found out that only 10% of elite male athletes with symptoms of depression sought help, and only 45% of females in the same circumstance. So, both of the statistics are very low, but I do think it's important to highlight how small, 10%? Like, how are we creating that type of culture where our top performing athletes aren't able to talk about their struggles? Some researchers point to masculinity norms, the idea that men, especially in competitive sports, are supposed to be like invulnerable, stoic, in control, and honestly perfect. So their mental health gets buried. I actually also interviewed some of my male athlete friends, just because I, of course, am not necessarily the best at talking about a male experience because I'm a female. So I wanted to make sure that when I'm talking about mental health and athletics, that I'm able to present both sides of things. And one of my male friends that I interviewed actually said that he had ignored his mental health struggles for 2 years, but once they became too big, it was unmanageable and he had to quit his sport. He also said that if he had taken the time when his struggles were more manageable to start with dealing with them and beginning to get help earlier, he likely would have been able to continue playing a sport and would have had a lot more success. He credited his gender stereotypes for a lot of his decision and said that, quote, like, as a guy, you're kind of just taught to deal with pain, which is such a difficult thing to grapple with because everyone experiences pain, we all experience it differently, but it's really difficult. So I do think introducing the idea of like gender and how that relates to like masculinity norms and then also mental health, I think that's a really important thing that we start to talk about. So another part that I think is important is kind of like the high stakes and how there's no room for struggle. Athletes often fear that they're just going to lose everything they've worked for. The scholarships, contracts, starting positions, reputation. There's this belief that if they speak up, I might be seen as unstable. And if I'm unstable, maybe I'm not worth the risk. I talked a little bit before when we were talking about physical injuries, the sort of unpredictability and inconsistency that injuries bring about, and how often coaches desire an athlete that is stable and secure. But no one is stable and secure. We all have our struggles. I think a good look into this is like Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles, which are two world-class athletes who have publicly prioritized their mental health. While there have been many people that have applauded them, myself included, Others criticize them for quitting or being unreliable. But I think the most reliable thing across the board for all people is the fact that we all have our struggles. But the end message throughout all of that is that mental health in athletics can cost you. So, of course, people aren't willing to speak up about it. But ignoring it doesn't make it go away, and in fact, it makes it worse. Athletes have higher rates of depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and even in some circumstances, substance abuse than the general population, especially when they're injured or nearing retirement. In 2014, Olympic swimmer Alison Schmidt opened up about her depression after losing a cousin to a self-induced death. She said she had no idea how to talk about it because she had spent her whole life praising her for being praised for being mentally tough. And mental toughness isn't about pretending you're fine. It's about knowing when to ask for help. So I think now the most important part to talk about is how do we create this sort of change? We need to normalize mental health conversations across the board, but especially in athletics. I feel like we've started to do this with physical injuries and especially like concussions. But I do think, like I've said in the other podcast episodes, we need to train coaches and athletic staff to spot those warning signs. We need to create spaces where athletes can talk without fear of being judged or benched. And we need to highlight athletes who are able to be open about their struggles because representation and visibility really matter. College and pro athletes are slowly bringing in more mental health professionals, which is such an incredible start. And I would love to see this at like the high school levels and such. But real change happens when teammates and not just therapists check in. I know that if a teammate of mine asked me how I was doing, I might feel more comfortable talking about it than if I just had a random woman talk to me. And if we are able to get to a point where that's normalized, I think that would be so powerful. Athletes, just as some end remarks, you all are so much more than what you just produce on a field, court, or track. Athletes, we are all people within. We have minds that need care just as much as our muscles. If you're an athlete listening to this and struggling, I truly cannot emphasize this enough. You are not alone. You are not weak. And you are not a burden. You are worthy of help, not later, but now. Thank you so much for tuning in to Sounds on the Sidelines. Next week, we're going to be talking a little bit more about just concussions in general, because I think that is deserving of its own episode. And if you've liked this episode, please share it and keep the conversation going. Until next time, take care of your body and your mind.